The regular meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for Tuesday, September 6, 2022 will please come to order. Good evening. Those of you who are in attendance, welcome. If you would, please take a minute and check your cell phone to make sure that you have placed it on vibrate or silence. We're not picking on you. We do at our time, forget to do our from time to time ourselves. But thank you for doing that. To those of you participating remotely, good evening. We welcome you as well. Members of the public are asked to place their microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point in the public hearing, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting such comments as they may wish to make, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments will be asked to first state their name and address for the record, and after completing the comment, members of the public are once again asked to place their microphone on mute, and we thank all of you for your cooperation this evening. At this point, if you would, please join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. DeMate.
Here.
Mr. Hazen.
Here.
Mr. Mamalenti.
Here.
Mr. Benicki.
Here.
Mr. Emmons.
Here.
Mr. Belovich.
Here.
Mr. Compton.
Here.
Mrs. Volker. Mr. Hicksonbaugh.
Here. Approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of August 15th, 2022. Are there any additions or corrections? Then hearing none, the minutes stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President, we have petition number 2022-14 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is a rezone from C2 commercial or shopping center to S1 extensive open space to remain a natural open space due to floodplain at V/L south of 4601 Grape Road. This is signed by Anthony Ricano. We have petition number 2022-15 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is a vacation of public right-of-way for the first alley between lots 44, 45, 46, and 47 of Battelle's Second Park Addition. This petition is signed by Thomas McLaughlin and Corey Smith and Aaron Cochran. Petition number 2022-16 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is a petition for PUD amendment to allow second restaurant with drive-through in a proposed multi-tenant commercial building south of 3615 Bremen Highway. This petition is signed by Ann Witkowski and Mark Kasanovich. Petition number 2022-17 to the honorable members of the Common Council. This is a petition to rezone from C1 General Commercial to S2 Planned Unit Development to allow mixed-use commercial and residential development on the northeast corner of North Main Street and University Drive. This is signed by Jeff Costello.
Thank you. Report of special committee. This evening, there is none of which I'm aware, so we'll move into ordinances on first reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2022-27, an ordinance approving an agreement between the City of Mishawaka Sewer Department and the Teamsters Local Union number 364, amending the collective bargaining agreement expiring on the 31st day of December 2024.
Proposed ordinance number 2022-27 will be assigned to the Personnel Committee.
Proposed ordinance number 2022-28, an ordinance approving an amendment to collective bargaining agreement between the City of Mishawaka and the Mishawaka Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 91.
Proposed ordinance number 2022-28 will be assigned to the Personnel Committee.
Proposed ordinance number 2022-29, an ordinance declaring an emergency and determining the expenditure of additional funds for the year ending December 31st, 2022. This is the additional funds in the ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Grant in the amount of $1,810,000.
Proposed ordinance number 2022-29 will be assigned to the Budget and Finance Committee. Resolutions.
Resolution R 2022-20, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, declaring certain areas within the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, commonly known as 2754 Lincoln Way East and adjacent parcels, to be an economic revitalization area and economic development target area for for purposes of a real property tax abatement for Barak Group LLC and/or ITS Signs.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2022-20. Good evening, Mr.
Good
Spear.
evening, President, members of the council. My name is Derek Spear. I'm the city planner. Office is located here at City Hall. Before you tonight is a declaratory resolution for a real property tax abatement, and this is for the proposed redevelopment of the Mishawaka Inn into a apartment complex, and also the construction of a second building to the north, located to the northeast of the existing hotel building. A proposed investment of 1.5 to 1.8 million is anticipated for the cost for the renovation of the existing building, and an additional $5 to $5.5 million for the construction of the second building. The first phase is anticipated for the first quarter of next year, with the construction of the new building in the second quarter of 2024. If the site is redeveloped as envisioned, an aged, underutilized hotel that currently has a negative reputation will be transformed into a viable and highly visible apartment complex on riverfront property. Due to the prior lack of investment in the property and underutilization of the existing hotel and the reduction in the property values that the site has experienced over the last 5 years, planning staff recommended that a real property abatement be submitted to assist in the redevelopment of the project. The request is for 5 years. Normally, when we do this, it's usually starts at 100% and then degrades at like a 10 or 20% annually through the life of the abatement. For this one, we're recommending a 5-year abatement for 100% the first year, decreasing 5% annually for the life of the abatement. This is similar to what was approved for the River Rock Apartments on Mishawaka Avenue, and then also for the River Walk Apartments that was planned but never started construction along Mishawaka Avenue to the east of Main Street. So this is the first step. If approved tonight, we will prepare a more detailed fiscal analysis to be considered with the a confirmation resolution. And the petitioner is here too. We'll have opportunity to speak more about more specifics on the projects if you have any other questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Spear? I'm not letting you get away that easy, Derek. And thank you. We had a little bit of exchange today about certain points, and I appreciated your clarification. Can you touch on, since you brought up timing, and some of the other projects that have been before us in recent memory that didn't come to fruition for whatever reason?
Correct.
Can you talk about this project and how it aligns with that past experience, and what certitude we have that we're going to know within a finite time period whether or not this is going to actually come to fruition?
For the last one, we had conversed about the River Walk project, which never came to fruition. When we approved that, the council set it up for a 5-year economic revitalization area. So that means annually, when the project, we saw no movement on the project, but we still had to come before you guys to report that there was no movement on the project. So for this one, we're only going to designate it as an economic revitalization area for a shorter period, for just over 3 years. So the period, if they don't start construction on the first and the second phase by the end of 2025, the actual, the designation for that area will expire. So it'll be a little bit, it's a tighter window to actually put some more fire under the developer to get them going in a shorter time frame.
And then, since we have the luxury of such a large crowd here this evening who may not always hear about tax abatements, can you talk a little bit about the way that the process works, and in particular, what the next stage in the process looks like if the council approves the resolution in front of us this evening?
If approved tonight, staff, we will prepare a more fiscal analysis showing what the abatement means based on the proposed investment. So we'll take a very high-level look at what we think that the property values would increase, and then the additional, the property taxes that are abated over that 5-year window, and then the property taxes that are actually generated by that additional investment. So that will be included in the next phase, and that will be provided for the confirmation resolution.
So tonight is step one in the process,
Step
but
one.
nothing is finally determined until that second vote and that second stage in the
Correct.
process if we advance to that
Correct.
stage. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Spear?
I have one.
Mr. Mamalenti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Spear, for the presentation. Just a quick question. I know this is just the declaratory stage, but in terms of the phase-in tax percentages that you mentioned before us, was that on the suggestion of the developer, or was that something that we proposed as a?
That was something that the council has been favorable to in the past. So those were the same, it's the same level of incentive that was given to both the River Rock apartments that have been developed and the other one that never came to fruition.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And just as President Hicksonball has mentioned in front of this crowd, that may be learning something more about tax abatements, even though that if this passes this evening, we still have time to adjust those percentages in the next step prior.
Correct, correct.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Spear? Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If you would, please come forward.
Good evening, Mike Huber, Abin-Marsh Consultants, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana. Here representing Brock Group, Mr. Neer Davison from Brock Group is on the line virtually as well. I think Derek did a really nice job of summarizing the project and what we're trying to accomplish here. The property owner has closed on the property. He's investigating the costs, detailed costs in terms of the structural analysis and what he can and can't do related to the mechanical equipment and all those kinds of things. And so he's putting the investment in. He's ready to make this improvement in this building. I think we're all excited about the possible change in that building there. We've laid out a fairly aggressive timeline. I think we've got 12 to 18 months to get the first building up, completed, and open and operating before we turn around a couple months later and start in on the second building. A total of about 105 units. I think we're trying to find the right mix in the first set, somewhere between 48 and 60 units. If you think about their hotel rooms now, we're trying to find the right mix. If you think of, we might have some studios that are just the one hotel room, but we'll have a larger number of 1 and 2 bedrooms. So the 1 bedroom is basically 2 hotel rooms, and the 2 bedroom is in 3 hotel rooms, kind of stacked together. So we're just trying to find that right mix that works from a financial pro forma standpoint, and allows us to maximize the units that we can get between the 2 buildings to get to that 100 and 110 unit level. So I don't want to take too much time and too many details. I'm happy to answer any questions specifically that you might have about the project.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Huber? Mr. Compton?
Mr. Huber, as I look at this, and I know we're only in the declaration stage, but I can't help but look at the whole project. So this is, how many units did you say it was going to be?
I think we're going to try to get to about 106 units, between 100 and 106 units total for the project.
And what are your rents going to be?
The rents are going to be market rate, so I think it's going to vary depending on whether it's a studio up to a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom unit. The second building is going to be almost exclusively all 1 and 2 bedrooms. We're not going to put studios in the second building, but I would anticipate rents are going to be in the 900 to 1,200, depending if it's a studio or maybe even a little higher for the 2 bedrooms. They're going to be roughly what the market rate rents are currently in the market.
Very good. What type of, is this going to be higher end units? Is this going to, tell me about the
So
finishes, and I mean, it's comparatively so, what's out there in the marketplace?
Certainly, I think it's going to be, to middle tier to high, middle upper, kind of. I don't know that we're going to be luxury. I don't know we're calling it luxury apartment, but, it's definitely going to be an upgrade to what's there, and it's going to be something that fits with the market at those rent rates.
Okay. Will you build this without a tax abatement? Will they develop this project without a tax abatement?
I would maybe defer. I think Mr. Davison's on the line, so I might defer that question to him. Or John, I don't know.
And maybe the question is, why do we have to grant a tax abatement for an apartment project in Mishawaka that provides no jobs? I understand we're cleaning up an old part of the city, a piece of the city we'd like to see cleaned up, but help me and maybe some other council members, certainly some people in the public,
understand why we should do that.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think if you look at the level of work that has to be done in terms of renovating these, in particular this building, and then following that up with another $4 million investment on the second building with the space that we have there, I think the abatement really helps him fill that pro forma gap to make that investment in that existing building worth it. That building has had years and years and years of deferred maintenance. And so, you know, the work that's required to get that thing back up to a standard that I think we'd all be happy to have it operating at, is going to, you know, it's going to certainly help offset that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Huber? Couple follow-ups then. Earlier, and I believe it was an analogy, when you were referring to hotel rooms, that was in fact just an analogy. This is going to be, the plan is for this to be an apartment complex.
That's
not-
absolutely right. They'll all have kitchens. They'll all have, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Even the studios will be, yep, they're not going to be hotel rooms. They're going to be apartments.
And then, going back to Mr. Spears' comments with regard to the time frame here and your comments about a tight timeline, for the record, as we lawyers say, can you commit that with that tight time frame that it's doable and that it's what we potentially hope is going to happen here will come to pass during that 3-year time period?
Yeah, I certainly think it's doable. Like I said, the heavy-duty investigation on, you know, what needs to be done and how that gets done by the contractor standpoint is taking place right now. So we based our timeline off of that. He's closed on the property. He has every intention of moving forward.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Huber? Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the proposed resolution, if you would, please come forward.
John Piercini, 633 Windy Cove Court here in Mishawaka, Coldwell Banker Commercial Office. I've been the broker on both sides of this deal. Probably to help Mike a little bit. This has been on the market 7 or 8 years, and they're just not, didn't have a lot of demand, you know, for the site, you know, to tear down the building, a lot of cost involved, wasn't overly priced. You know, landscaping, access, there's a lot of issues here over the years. We finally were able to land Dunkin' Donuts, who had actually turned it down 3 times. Wendy's had turned it down, didn't want that side of the street, you know, but it just, I think, a small blessing in the COVID era of drive-throughs and things started raising some demand and helping this property out. Mr. Davison come along, had a lot of interest in it, has a lot of investment in the community, and saw an opportunity to do something very nice along the river and help this area out. I mean, this, let's face it, this place is, it's kind of unique in the trouble, the issues, the maintenance, you know, when you look around Mishawaka and where it sets and what we're trying to do over there on the east end. We've met with neighbors, we've had all kinds of meetings with poor Ken. I've been bugging him and Derek since about March. You know, they've done a yeoman's job on just working with us, and we've met and met and met and met, trying to meet this point. You know, developer wanted 100% for 10 years, you know, that wasn't in there. Wanted 100% for 5 years, and Ken just pretty much, and Derek said, not gonna happen, you know, you're gonna do what others have done. And I've made it pretty clear to Mr. Davis, and he can confirm that, you know, you gotta stick to whatever you say, you gotta stick to that. If you want that abatement, you know, you gotta stick to that plan, do something, make sure it's realistic. Don't say something we can't get done, you know, because, you know, I mean, there's things that happen, but, you know, so he's hired, I mean, he's got a lot of money invested in this already. Architects, you know, engineer, I mean, they've been through the whole thing. So I just wanted to make it clear that, you know, that it's a site that could use it. It's not a ton of money, but it's enough to help. If you look at the site now, no landscaping, you know, access has been improved some, the parking got to do a bunch. There's a lot of issues there that are outside the building itself, you know. So I think you've seen the renderings. It's going to be a nice project. So I think that amount of money, it's not earth-shattering, but it helps, and helps get this thing going off the ground and make it work, you know, because of the cost of construction today. So anyway, I don't belinger that if you got any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Benicki.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Piercini. Maybe this question for you or Mr. Huber. So we're going to redo this. We're not going to just hire a bunch of guys off the side of the road. Can you talk about
who's going to come in and be the contractor, and what kind of help are we going to get? We're going to use some trade people here? Any idea?
Well, I'm not sure who, he's got a general, a guy, well, it's not really a general, but the guy that works for him that's doing all this right now. But we've talked about, the bidding process and making sure there's opportunities, for local people to bid on it, obviously. So it's probably, I'm not able to speak on the specifics right now, but we have discussed that, that is always an issue, We're kind of like that here in Mishawaka. We like to make sure everybody gets a shot at a bid, whether, labor, whoever, just get a shot at bidding. So I think I see that, but he can attest to that, I guess, is better than I would.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Caricini? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If you would, please come forward to the podium. Seeing no one, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? Then is there anyone physically present with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed resolution? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Thank you. Are there any council members who wish to speak? Mr. Compton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I voted in support of tax abatement for the mill project in Mishawaka because we wanted to kick that off and really wanted to move that. Actually, it wasn't the mill. It was across the street at the on Mishawaka Avenue there. Because that was our first project downtown in apartments, and we wanted to make that successful. There was a little bit of an assistance in the mill. It wasn't through a tax abatement. But at some point, for me and one councilman, that these got to stand on their own and shouldn't be abated. I don't think, for me personally, a tax abatement should be for something that benefits the citizens. I see some benefit here, but not like the other ones we give where there's employment opportunities that are provided from the development or the abatement. I suspect this will pass tonight, but I'm not going to be able to support this. I know it's just the first phase, and that we'll enter in, if it passes, we'll enter in a much bigger discussion on what, how, and when. But I just, at this point, I'm not in support of it and won't vote for it.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the council? Then I will say real briefly, I appreciate your thoughtful comments, as always, Mr. Compton. I certainly can understand where you come from. I'm willing to cast a vote this night in order to allow the process to continue, as you referenced. And I'm also seldom inclined to vote in favor of these type of projects for tax abatement, but with this area that has been so distressed for so long, and with the opportunity for this development to be able to not just take care of that one property, but to have a positive impact in the surrounding properties, again, I'm willing to cast a vote in favor of this evening to have a chance to review the additional information and to learn more about it. So I will be voting in favor of this evening. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Mamalante.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Compton, for your input. I'd just like to echo some sentiments that Mr. Hicksonball had mentioned. As we all have mentioned and heard this evening, this is just the first process that allows the city to move forward in this process. One thing I could ask some of the folks here is, as this process plays out, that we also have to be mindful of, as Mr. Hubert mentioned, the market rate is set accordingly. And I'm sure if the tax abatement does not go through, I'm sure that monthly rent may go up in order for him to get his return on investment. So that's not confirmed. I'm just kind of sharing my thoughts, something to move forward. But just for this first process, that nothing is set in stone, I will be voting in favor of this evening.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then hearing none, I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Demay?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
No.
Mrs. Volker, I'm sorry, she's not going to be voted. Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
The resolution passes 7-1.
All right. Ordinances on second reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2022-19. Let me get. An ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone C2 Shopping Center Commercial to C1 Auto-Oriented Restaurant for speculative outlot. Lot number 1, CAT Mishawaka LLC, minor subdivision.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2022-19, report that they have examined said matter and that in their opinion should be presented to the council as a whole. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll now move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-19. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And let's see if there's anybody participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of proposed ordinance 2022-19.
Mike Gilbert's here representing the developer.
I don't know if it's only me, sir, but I have a little trouble hearing you, so could you boost your volume by any chance?
I'll give it a shot.
Oh, that
Better?
worked.
Okay.
Could you repeat your name again, please?
Mike Gilbert.
Thank you.
Our proposal here is to create an acre outlot on surplus land that we have for a project that's currently under construction on 3.38 acre site. We're carving out 1 acre as an outlot, if you will. With this approval tonight, we'll be ready to market this property to a next developer, and we look forward to bringing a new project to the city. Here to answer any questions and provide any additional information that I can that anybody might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gilbert? Mr. Gilbert, one question. Mr. Spear was good enough to share with me some information today that verified that although originally you, the petition had asked for C7 zoning, that at this point in time, there was an agreement to instead request C2 shopping center, C1 general commercial zoning. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Gilbert? All right, then, thank you, sir. If you would, please mute your microphone once again, but we appreciate your participation. Is there anyone else physically present? I'm going to jump back and wants to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance. And is there anyone else participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Then is there anyone present with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. Then do we have anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Thank you. Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. Demay?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0. Proposed ordinance number 2022-20, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from C1 existing insurance office to R1 single-family residential, conversion back to house at 2212 Lincoln Way West.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom is referred the matter of proposed ordinance 2022-20, report that they have examined said matter and in their opinion should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Then hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will now move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-20. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
They're in the audience.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak with regard to 2212 Lincoln Way East? And let's check to see if we have anybody.
He's coming.
He's here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself, sir. Good evening.
That's all right. Good evening. Chris Skidinski, 59308 Downey Avenue, Mishawaka. And we had operated that property for 20-plus years as an insurance office. We have subsequently moved the office to a building by our home and put the property up for sale. It sold on the condition that we listed it as residential. It seems to be the best use for it. So that's why we applied and are at this point.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Skidinski? Mr. Compton?
Couldn't let you off, Chris. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Good luck in your venture.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, then is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If so, please come forward. And once again, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition? And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Thank you. Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMate,
Yes.
Mr. Hazen,
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti,
Yes.
Mr. Benicki,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mr. Belovich,
Yes.
Mr. Compton,
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh.
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0. Proposed ordinance number 2022-21, and ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from I-1 light industrial to R1 single-family residential for an existing house at 805 South Logan Street.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2022-21, they report that they have examined said matter, and in their opinion, it should be adopted. And this is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will now move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-21. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Hello, I'm Dawn Kripe. I live at 11650 East 310 South LaGrange, Indiana. We're just asking for that home to be residential so my daughter can buy it.
That's about all you need to say, right? Thank you. Any questions from the council? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anybody physically present who wishes to speak in opposition? And And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0. Proposed ordinance number 2022-22, an ordinance annexing contiguous territory to the city of Mishawaka, Indiana, and providing zoning classification therefore. This is annexation and zone to S2 PUD for commercial use, 14325 Cleveland Road. This is a public hearing with no vote.
Thank you. We will now move into the public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-22. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Good evening. Greg Sharon with Dan Charner Associates, 1643 Commerce Drive, South Bend, Indiana, 46628. Here tonight representing the various property owners of approximately 51 acres of land on the southwest corner of I-8090 Toll Road and Capitol Avenue to annex and rezone the property. The developer would like to bring the property into the city and rezone for a mixed-use development, which will include allowed uses under the C1, C2, C4, C7, C9, and C10 commercial classification. Right now, the planned development is a car dealership campus. This is the first phase in the process to annex into the city. This will be phase this will occur in several phases. It could be, 10-plus years before the whole property is developed. So this is the first stage in that process. Once the first site plan comes through, the city will look at traffic patterns in the area. They will look at, the county traffic master plan and the needs for traffic, what is needed as far as turn lanes, widening the roads at that point in time. So it is current with when that first development comes in. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sharon? One follow-up.
Okay.
And I know that you had a chance to review the staff report. There's a mention in there, not so much with regard to the annexation itself, but with the anticipated proposed use to the filling station use that was identified.
Correct.
Can you talk about that a little bit and your response to the concerns that were expressed by the planning staff?
Yes, I believe their concern was mostly the environmental concern. And so, as we said during the Plan Commission meeting, I believe the staff's concern was the specific location of a filling station. And so we will work with the staff to put that, if that ever comes to be, to where that is acceptable to the staff to meet those requirements. But at this point, there is no plan for a filling station.
Okay. And since we're talking about an area that's in fairly close proximity to the Judy Creek well field, when you talk about an automobile campus, and this just may be my faulty assumption, but I envision some mechanical work taking place there, oil and other fluids potentially being, at issue.
Right.
And I know that there are some capture mechanisms that those type of facilities have to put in place, but beyond a potential filling station, can you touch on that type of use as well?
Yes, there are laws, specifically that they'll have to keep oil separated so that doesn't go into the sanitary sewer system and also infiltrate into the groundwater. So when you're dealing with, any sort of oil or mechanical car stuff, those restrictions are very precise of what you have to do to maintain the environmental integrity, and they will definitely, comply with those requirements.
Okay, so those type of activities would presently be envisioned to take place on site?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
It's a big development, so yes, part of the auto repair would be.
Well, I appreciate your patience, and if nothing else, you've allowed me to demonstrate to Mr. Benicki, my friend, that he's not the only one who focuses in on those filling station-related issues, so thank you for that. Any other questions for Mr. Sheriff? Mr. Compton?
Yeah, Mr. Sharon, thank you for, this looks interesting and a location, and what I think about is charging stations and being right there on the toll road. And this would be kind of an ideal spot for people traveling down the toll road who need an extra boost. Is that being discussed? And if it is, this is going to just do nothing but get more popular, traffic and, those kinds of things. Can you address that?
Like I said, this project, will be a several-year process, and I think, if, 5 years down the road, the electric vehicle market grows, then there could be a potential that, this dealership could start bringing in more electric vehicles, and also part of that, have a charging station. I can't say that for sure, but you
Yeah, I
never know.
understand. No,
You never know what the market might be at the time when it comes in.
in the end, it's what the market demands is what
Correct,
is done.
right.
So, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Mamalenti?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your presentation this evening. I know you had mentioned it's a long, several-year project.
Correct.
With the first being the auto campus? Can you confirm that?
Yes.
Or is,
Yes. Right now, the plan is for the whole development to be an auto campus. Like I said, being several years, it may turn out, that the market doesn't allow that, and so something else might come in under the uses that are approved for the annexation and zoning.
and for those that are here and listening online, when you refer it to as auto campus, do you mean what may include several dealerships?
Yeah, there
cetera.
could be, it's not definite now, but there could be a Toyota, a Subaru, a Chrysler, all on one campus. I know you drive around, all over the country.
Sure.
There's several car dealerships all contained into one several-acre parcel of land.
Okay,
So,
great, thank you.
yep.
Mr. Benicki?
Thank you. Mr. Sharon, so on that side of Cleveland Road, the north side, are there any houses on that side right now?
On Cleveland Road, on the north side of Cleveland Road?
Yeah, right, on the side that's being proposed, because you're not taking everything. I mean, it looks like there's going to be,
Right, I
Couple
believe
spots
there's a property to the, a residential to the west of what's being annexed
okay.
of the property.
And have you guys had conversations with that neighbor to discuss some of these issues that are going on?
We have not had those conversations with them at this point. I mean, we'd be happy to.
Some of this magnitude, I would think that,
Correct.
especially with some of the other folks even on the other side of Cleveland Road, obviously, this is a big impact. Now, I know that the roads would be improved as needed, things like that.
Right.
How close is Jude Creek actually to this campus?
Oh, jeez. I do not have that information at this time, as far as, how close Judy Creek is actually.
'Cause that's something I've been pretty staunch on,
Okay.
protecting that.
We
And
can-
then also the neighbors in the neighborhood there, do you know if they are hooked to city utilities, or are they on wells and septics?
From my understanding, that the residents out there now are, I believe, water. They're hooked up to water, and I believe some of the residents here are there tonight, so they can confirm that. But I also believe that they're on septic. But when they come into the city, when this property, they're required to connect to city water and city sanitary. So
Right,
any problems with, if there may be problems with, sanitary backup in those residents, this development will not be adding to that because it will be on municipal sanitary sewer.
So your proposal is on water and sewer, but theirs is not necessarily going to be hooked up automatically to water and sewer, is that correct? I mean, the whole neighborhood there around the golf
No,
course?
no.
Because that's what I'm relaying to. is,
Okay.
Are they, if they have wells now, I mean, obviously, there's a chance,
Right,
slight chance
right.
for
And I
contamination.
believe, and Ken or Derek may confirm this, but I believe once utilities go out there, depending on where it comes from, that they would have the opportunity to hook up to that if they would want to. But Ken or Derek can confirm that. But typically, when a city extends utilities and the adjacent property owners aren't connected to that, they have the opportunity to connect to the utilities, but they're not required to because they're not annexed into the city.
So do you know what direction then the utilities would come from? I mean, are they going to come along Capitol Avenue? Are they going to come along the toll road? Are they going to come along Cleveland Road? Or are they going to come up through that neighborhood? Any idea?
At this point, that's part of the process. When that first plan comes in, the city will look at where the utilities are from now. I know when I spoke to Adam, and I don't know if representative from engineering is here, but I did call Adam last week and said, where are utilities coming from? And it was his understanding that they are going to expand Beacon Parkway. And in that process, the water and sewer will be installed in there. And then this project will be connected onto those utilities that are coming through the Beacon Parkway expansion utility.
Okay.
So those type of questions, like I said, any annexation, and you'll get a fiscal plan, in a couple of weeks, prepared by the staff. And as part of that report will be the engineering, and they might be able to answer some of those questions in that report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Sherman? Then not so much a question as a comment to piggyback on your dialogue with Mr. Panicki. To be candid, I'm disappointed with what I understood to be your answer with respect to any type of meeting with the neighbors and the public. I would have expected that you and your firm, being as experienced as you are, given the size and the scope and the proximity here, would have already have taken that affirmative step. I don't know how others feel, but I think you have been in front of us enough to know that it historically has been the preference of the council, wherever a significant development like this occurs, for those type of meetings to take place. Whatever the outcome, there's value in the process and allow people to have a say-so in what's going on next to them. So I'll speak only for myself, but that will be a significant factor with regard to how I feel about this project moving forward. If in fact there is not that type of opportunity for you to meet with the neighbors, that will be an important point that I'll want some clarification on
Okay.
between now and the next time we're asked to vote on this.
Okay. Like I said, we always have that opportunity to, and I know we've spoken to Mr. Benicki about this, that if that is concern and it feel like we do need to speak to the neighbors, that we could table it till, until we have that.
You read my mind. I was going to say, again, I'm speaking only for myself, but I feel so strongly about it that if you required some additional time to get it scheduled and to have it take place,
Okay.
that would be my preference for you to have the meeting before you come to us and ask us to cast a vote.
Well, since it's a public hearing, we'll let those who want to speak, and then we'll.
That was my
decide after
intent.
that.
That was my
That's it?
intent.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If you would, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Ken Prince, the Director of Planning and Community Development for the city. I'm not here to speak in favor of this project, but I just want to add some clarity regarding to the sewer and water issue. Currently, the Judy Creek subdivision is on septic and well systems. There is no intent to provide public sewer or water to that subdivision at this point in time. There is a contamination issue associated with the highway garage, the county highway garage that's located north of Cleveland. My understanding is it's a salt issue. If you recall, when we discussed the well field, we very specifically looked at the aquifers involved and that issue. But that's a separate issue, and my understanding is the county has provided some filtration systems to the homeowners that are significantly impacted by that salt, but that is a separate issue. Any development would go on sewer and water, and in fact, when you looked at your conditions, not only did we recommend in those conditions prohibiting any kind of fueling facility, we did not want those underground tanks as part of that, which is why the convenience store, the filling station, we identified as a prohibited use, but also that the extension of sewer and water was one required for the project, whatever develops there, and that it would be the developer's responsibility to provide those as part of that. My understanding from an engineering perspective, as you know, Veterans Parkway was built from Douglas Road going north to serve our Wellfield facility. That'll also serve the recreation facility. My understanding is the most practical way to extend sewer and water is to take that from that location that we're currently extending it and to bring it due north to Cleveland Road. If you can imagine, Capitol Avenue is similar, it's the Grand Canyon, if you will. You don't want to cross it. Same with the toll road, you don't want to cross it. The most logical connection point is from the south, from Veterans Parkway, and it would be the developer's obligation if they can't negotiate the extension of it, this property wouldn't develop it under this proposed annexation request. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for those clarifications. Any questions for Mr. Prince? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If so, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Is there anyone present with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? If so, please come forward to the podium.
Hi, I'm Ann Shachinsky. I live at 53398 County Murray Drive in Granger. It's in the Judy Creek subdivision. We've had problems with our well field for years because of that salt. They put in various things that were supposed to ameliorate the problem. It's still there. The traffic is already bad there because it's almost impossible to turn left out of the subdivisions during certain hours of the day. I've been late to work before because I couldn't get a break in the traffic to turn left there. There are other places where they could put this car dealership, like I'm thinking the movie 6 lot, which has city water already, so if something did leak, it wouldn't be ruining anybody's well. And there's a huge parking lot there already. There are a lot of other open places, like along Douglas, or the old Charter Hospital site, or various places on Douglas Road. But anyway, I moved there 32 years ago, and part of the reason I moved there was because it was a largely rural environment, and that will be wrecked if there's a car dealership there, because you're already talking about putting in development on the west side of us, I'm sorry, on the east side of us. We're going to get blocked in by nothing but development, and it's going to ruin the character of that neighborhood. I think it'll damage our property values, and that's it.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward.
Good evening. Tim Buczynski, 14700 County Murray Drive, Granger. I live in the neighborhood, Judy Creek Estates. And I'm also a member of the HOA board. And our board president had a prior commitment this evening, so he couldn't attend. On August 16th, there was a story run by WSBT about this project. And when that story ran, the HOA board started talking, and nobody knew anything about this at the time. So I contacted two people that were interviewed for that story, and I asked them the details about if they received notification of the meeting, and found out that they were given notice. I reviewed a listing of on the north side of the street, so they're integrally related, that I wouldn't expect they would oppose it. Then there's a church, and there's really only one unaffiliated homeowner that's probably for that project southeast corner of that project. So there's one house there that's not part of it. And the only other people that are on that list are 4 homeowners in our neighborhood that evidently did receive notification. However, none of those homeowners contacted the board, so we knew nothing about this until that date. Per page 7 of the proposed ordinance, item 1, existing conditions, it mentions the heavily traveled Cleveland Road corridor, and that's the main thoroughfare between people who work and/or live in St. Joe County and Elkhart County and vice versa. So it's very heavily traveled, and you can't underestimate the amount of traffic we have on there. In addition, it mentions the church in that section, mentions several single-family houses, but has no mention of Judy Creek Estates, which includes those 4 homeowners. So basically, the 4 homeowners were notified, but our homeowners association was not notified. Now, I know per the statute, you have to have property within 300 feet, so technically we didn't qualify. However, being so close, you would have thought we would have got some notification. If you walk directly across Cleveland Road from the project, starting at the southwestern tip, so if you take steps, go across the road, take 1 step to the west, you're standing in the county easement of our HOA that we take care of. Then you take a few more steps, you're in the backyards of these properties. So we're right there. Also, if you go over another property to the west of these 4 properties, it's right on the boulevard that leads to our only entrance to the neighborhood. We have 138 homes in our neighborhood, and I feel it's only appropriate that we should be included in the notice and in the existing conditions paragraph and in future discussions related to the project. Homeowners and the board, we have many issues regarding traffic, especially making the current problem of getting in and out of our neighborhood more difficult, lighting, et cetera, many issues. However, we haven't had time to really discuss all the issues and decide how to proceed. We have not had an HOA meeting since August 16th when we found out about this, and our next scheduled meeting is September 18th. So I respectfully request that the public hearing be continued at a later date and the vote on the 19th be pushed back or some combination there to give the homeowners and the HOA board more time to evaluate the situation and meet with Dan Charner personnel so that we can have some input on the project, especially since we did not know about the project until after the favorable recommendation by the city planner due to the facts I stated above. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Thank you for your comments, sir. Let me ask a couple clarifying questions.
Yes.
I want to make sure that I understand what your request is of us this evening. What I heard you say is that your homeowners association is not meeting until September 18th, correct?
Correct.
So are you asking, and then what I also understood, you heard me say earlier that it would be my preference that the developer engage in a public, some type of neighborhood meeting, I guess I'll call it, that you folks would be invited to.
Yes.
If they were able to schedule that and get the notice out and have that occur prior to September 19th, would you still request that we postpone this, or would that alleviate the need to postpone?
I think we would still need to recommend the postponement because the board doesn't have a meeting till the 18th, so we really can't talk about this until then, if that answers your question. I don't think there's enough time to do that, to get in touch with enough homeowners to know where they stand in terms of being pro or against the project altogether, and then once we get past that, to discuss all the details.
I would agree with you. The homeowners association meeting date is important to me, but I think the nuts and bolts details of being able to schedule a meeting with as many people involved would make it difficult to kind of jam it in,
Yes.
in a 2-week time frame. So that I would agree with you on.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? And thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward.
Good evening, President, Council. This is my first time, so
That's okay, you're doing fine.
I'm very nervous. My name is Jenny Martin, and I'm at 53044 County Cary Drive in Judah Creek Estates. My property is the furthest east of the neighborhood, so it is the edge right off Cleveland, and then the farm that borders our backyard on the east side. And so we are directly across from the proposed land. We are against it. We moved out here 13 years ago from South Bend for a quiet place to raise our children. And in the 13 years that we've been at this property, there have been 2 accidents through our yard, through the association's trees and the association's fence and up into our backyard. And countless other rear endings that haven't come through our property. So the traffic is an issue, and we're raising 5 children, and being able to get out in a timely manner, the traffic has increased significantly. And we would just like to request that it remain agriculture or residential. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Mr. Benicki?
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Jenny. When you purchased the property, Capitol Avenue was already there?
Capitol Avenue was there.
Okay, and so when Capitol Avenue was actually built, one of the biggest draws to it was all the land along the sides of it. I mean, we dreamed of big manufacturing and all these other things, and we really haven't seen much of anything along Capitol Avenue. And this is kind of, it's starting from more, the toll road, and it's kind of moved. And so at some point, this is somebody's property, and of course, they want to cash out for the best they can. That's the American dream.
Absolutely. And the farmers are friends of ours. I care very much for them and their ability to sell their land and do what they need to do with it. It's becoming a car lot, though, will significantly lower our property values, and we may not be able to move out very easily.
Well, I mean, it's here or there. I mean, sometimes car lots can be very nice. They keep them up, curb appeal's good. I mean, it would be much better than, some great big car factory. So, I mean, there's pros and cons on, what would be good there or not. We all want green space in our backyards. I mean, I used to live in the county, and City of Mishawaka annexed me in years and years ago. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I moved to where I was and thought I was safe. But as the city grows and grows and grows, we're just going to keep sprawling out. And so
Sure.
at some point,
You can't stop progress.
right. And so, we do try to be sympathetic and try to work with people to the point that, to make it as easy as possible. But progress is progress. So appreciate you being here today, and hopefully we can make this as painless as possible.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And Jenny, you did a fine job, by the way.
My name is Roger Lum. I live at 53208 St. Matthews Court in Judah Creek Estates. And I am absolutely opposed to this based on the traffic and a number of other questions that we have proposed to Ken Prince, who is going to be putting us in contact with Dan Harder to answer our questions before the 19th meeting. But the problem a lot of us have is that the Judah Creek Business Park was jammed down our throats. The water treatment plant, to our knowledge, there's been no contract signed for any development other than the sports facility in that acreage. Why can't this car lot go there? I mean, come on, it's sitting there. You play golf out there, they're moving the black dirt around. It's flying around. Nothing's doing. just the water treatment plant. So I'll propose my questions to Ken Prince. He's already gotten them. He has indicated that he was out of town this last week, so we couldn't, be in contact with him. But then I'll ask him that he puts me in contact with Dan Charter to answer these questions before the next meeting or the delayed meeting. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Tressa Decker, and I live at 53095 Juday Creek Boulevard in Juday Creek Estates. And I'm also part of the Homeowners Association Board. And I'm speaking in opposition of this annexation and project. Earlier, we heard the gentleman from Dan Charter speak about the environmental integrity of this area and making sure that that was kept at the forefront. But the environmental integrity of this area is already compromised because of the water issue we have that came from the county building there on Cleveland. So to add a big complex near this, is there any way that you can guarantee that it's not going to compound the issues that we are already dealing with water quality? That would be a real concern of ours, because there's, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but I have big concerns, and so do many of our neighbors, about what the impact would be environmentally with this type of development right there on an already questionable piece of land. Several have spoken about traffic. Again, I'll echo that. We have big concerns about traffic, the noise, the increased noise, and just all of the things that would go along with a car dealership complex. Heavier equipment coming through more frequently, delivering things, and so forth. So we're pleased that we will have the opportunity to voice our questions, but I wanted to go on record tonight as saying that we are in opposition to this annexation and development. I think Mr. Lum had a great suggestion to put it on Douglas Road, where the city is already located. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Compton?
I have a question,
Tressa?
ma'am, if you don't mind.
No.
And you're on the Homeowners Association? Good, thank you. If we were looking at a housing development here, would the Homeowners Association be in support of that? I mean, adding 50, 60, 70 homes, whatever would be in there. Would they be in support of that?
I think it would be more favorable than something commercial right there, but I think there would be, again, there would be concerns about more people drawing from that aquifer. If the city's annexing it and putting residential there, I think it has a different feel for the whole area where we are. That corridor between Capitol and Fur is not industrial at all. There's nothing industrial there or commercial. So possibly, but I think those concerns remain as far as drawing from that.
Is the biggest concern traffic?
One of the biggest.
So I'm not sure that anything could develop there that really would be acceptable.
Right. Well, with Cleveland Road as it is, I don't know how you can add more to it right there.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Decker? Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition is already on her way.
Penelope Culbertson, 53106 Juday Creek. I also echo what my neighbors say, but I'd like to also point out the light pollution that would come from a car dealership, especially for the people that live around the outside. Those things are usually lit 24/7 so that burglars or people don't come and steal their cars. And we already have the traffic. We have the noise that's coming from the freeway and from Cleveland. That I knew when I bought the house. But to have the added light is really a big deal. So I'd like you to keep that into consideration as well. And that's all for now.
Thank you.
All
Any
right.
questions? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Hearing none, are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then we will close. Something you want to add, Mr. Sharon?
Yes, I thought I had the right of rebuttal, or to just
Not
address
under,
some of these
under,
things.
not under our rules, but I will do you a professional courtesy.
Sorry. Yeah, based on, you know, what we heard from the neighbors and everything, I spoke to the petitioner, and he has agreed that, yeah, we can table and meet at the next association meeting to address some of their concerns. So we would,
My preference would be for us to postpone this until a date certain, and I am going to suggest our first meeting in October. Do you believe that would be sufficient time?
yes, I believe so. Correct.
By my calendar, that would be
3rd.
10-3.
Monday, October 3rd.
Okay.
Then at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to postpone any further public hearing and vote on proposed ordinance 2022-22 until our regularly scheduled council meeting of October 3rd, 2022.
So moved?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Crompton.
I just want to make sure everyone who's had it, that we're not cutting anyone off tonight who wanted to speak. I know you called, but I'll support this, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone who.
We're already past that point, Mr. Crompton.
Very good, thank you, sorry.
A motion has been made and seconded to postpone the public hearing and vote on proposed ordinance 2022-22 until our regularly scheduled council meeting of October 3rd, 2022. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Mr. Memolo?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just more of a comment or a request to the homeowners association and the folks, Mr. Sharon, any dates or meetings, or public meetings that you guys hold with the nearby residents, if you could let the clerk or the president know, so he or she could let the council folks know, and I'm sure several of us would like to attend. Okay. Thank you.
Great suggestion, thank you. Mr. Prince appears to want to add a comment.
I apologize, Mr.
No problem.
President. There is an issue regarding, I don't know where we'll be on October 3rd, whether we'll be here or in the new building. So just, we should confirm that location, just so everybody knows in the audience. I don't want somebody to mistakenly show to this building when we're at the new building. So please confirm the location of the new meeting.
Folks, for those of you who aren't aware of it, we are in the process of moving to a new city hall, so there's a chance we might be at another location in downtown Mishawaka when you come back to see us on October 3rd. So when that becomes known, my sense of it is that we're going to have some type of public events, and we'll make it publicly known, but we will ask our friends at Danch Harner to help get the word out to the neighborhood association where we will be meeting on Monday, October 3rd. Thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Prince.
Might want to just go ahead and like the City of Mishawaka Facebook page, and you'll get updates with that as well.
So now everybody has another Facebook page that you can like, so you can receive up-to-date information from our city clerk and her staff. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to postpone further public hearing and vote signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The matter will be postponed until Monday, October 3rd, 2022, at a location to be determined. Thank you.
Good thing we're getting new chairs.
Everybody else wishes that they were here for that matter now at this point. don't they?
Proposed ordinance number 2022-23, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from C1 to R1 to rebuild single-family residential house at 911 North Main Street. This should be pretty simple.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2022-23, report that they have examined said matter and, in their opinion, should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? And hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll now move into the second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-23. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Pierre Smith, 310 South Kentucky, South Bend, Indiana. The property is actually my property, and it's zoned as commercial, so you can't rebuild a residential house. So we want to tear it down and rebuild a house, and that's basically what it is.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Smith? Not so much a question, but a comment, sir. I am pleased to make your acquaintance, if for no other reason, that is the house that my grandma owned, and I grew up there, so.
You know what? So can I take 30 seconds? I'm gonna
Please.
tell this real quick. I bought this house in 1994, and 6 months after I was there, someone stole my Rottweiler puppy.
Wasn't me. Go ahead.
So I called the police, and the police that showed up came to the house, and he was looking all around the house, and I was like, man, he's not even listening to me. He's looking around the house. So I said to him, hey, wait, hold up, man. What you looking for? And then he said, this used to be my grandmother's house. So is that your brother?
That was my brother. That was my brother-in-law. So now you've met two of us, and the odds are, as this project moves forward, you're going to have a chance to meet my third brother as well, who will probably want to stop by and eyeball it as well. But I appreciate what you're doing with the property. Thank you for making the investment in rebuilding, and I wish you well.
Thank you. All right.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance? And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0. Proposed ordinance number 2022-24, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from C2 Center Commercial and C7 Auto-Oriented Restaurant to C4 Auto-Oriented Commercial for Drive and Shine Car Wash Facility at 3605 Bremen Highway.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred said matter, a proposed ordinance number 2022-24, report that they have examined said matter, and in their opinion, it should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will now move into second reading of public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-24. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
you have enough for everybody and me, or just everybody?
Actually fell one short, but Kate wasn't here, so I got lucky. John Pericini, 633 Windy Cove Court, Mishawaka. This is a property that I own with Dick LaFree and I had owned it. Dick passed away recently, so it's in his estate. We bought this back in '06. I wanted to give you a little history. Most of you probably know, but this area has been a long, kind of slow development. Back in the day, a developer bought a bunch of this land. He made an agreement with the city to bring the water and sewer there because the Meyer sewer line we couldn't get into because it was a private line. It was kind of a strange thing, but it was to get Myers there. So then the developer did not succeed. So all this investment became troubled, where they had to assess each lot. At the time, our assessment was like $65,000 to get sewer hooked up, because it was so much committed to that. The city had made the commitment to, I think it was Mayor Wood at the time, we made a commitment to the south side to be the entrance of the city. So it looked, made it look nice and approachable and put the lanes in and all that. So it got a big commitment there. So finally, it's taken a little while, but to get this developed. And as you've seen, we went through a long, again, with Ken and the mayor and working with the city to get that Meyer Drive extended, the plan for the road to run to the bypass, Elmwood cut off, and then the mini storage went up there, pulled the sewer line there, then Taco Bell came. And as you've seen tonight on first reading, there's the next parcel up coming. They don't have nothing specific, but from what I understand, it might be a restaurant or two there. And so this parcel of ours, we've had on the market, and Mr. Trani couldn't make it tonight. He had to be up in Michigan. But he came looked at it, liked it. We had kind of looked at marketing a lot of different ways and decided to build his car wash there. He's done, obviously, he's got a lot of investment in our city. He pays his people well. He's always been he was always ahead of the $15 thing years ago. And so I think it's really a great addition. And the south side is a little tough. Soils are a little tougher. They're just, it's just a little tougher area to push that development. So I think it's just a good opportunity. And as you see, if you can see, though, the property we did rezone it back, the Plan Commission went through and they passed it. But you can see it's already it's zone commercial now, C7, C2. So what we're just trying to do is zone it for the car wash. Steve Ruby's here from Avamar. He's done the technical side of this thing for Haji and us to how to lay this thing out. We always get this concern about the ditch, but the laying ditch we've addressed for years. It's been there forever. You can't move it, you can't bury it, you can't pipe it without permission from the county. We've had the easement reduced, but the line's going to get moved, but it's been all working with the county on it. So, because it's the flow of the water from the farm fields out through and underneath the road and to the big pond. So that issue's pretty much resolved at this point. So, any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Pericini? Okay. Thank you. Steve?
Thank you. As Mr. Pericini said, Steve Ruby, Avamar Consulting, working with the developer, 315 West Jefferson, South Bend, Indiana. We're here helping develop that Drive and Shine site and facility. As Mr. Pericini said, it's very challenging with the drainage easements and different things that go through it currently. We're just helping smooth that process out, making sure everything comes into compliance with the City of Mishawaka standards and regulations, and making sure the facility is a top-notch facility as all his other facilities are currently. So we just make sure that we're good stewards and try to develop this in the most economic and beneficial way possible. So, any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ruby? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Is there anyone here with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Thank you. Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question?
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0. Proposed ordinance number 2022-25, an ordinance to establish the Cedar Street Multiple Site District within the city of Mishawaka, Indiana.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2022-25, report that they have examined said matter and their opinion should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll now move into second reading of public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-25. Good evening.
My name is Krista Hill. I'm the Secretary for the Historic Preservation Commission, and I work in the Planning Department. With me tonight are Alan Groskowiak, Mary Watt, and Luann. I am so sorry. Welsh. I just wrote down their first names. Luann Welsh, who are also on the Historic Preservation Commission, and worked with each of these homeowners. And one of the homeowners, Mike Portalees, is here representing his family. The three houses contained are within this district are 315 Cedar, owned by, on the tax record as Michael F. and Rosalie Portalees, represented by Mike Portalees. It is a contributing property. 321 Cedar, owned by Sarah Jostwick, is an outstanding property. And 403 Cedar, owned by Susan Goodair, was recognized as notable in 1995 when we had the survey done, but was recently reviewed by the Indiana Landmark staff and was elevated to the status of outstanding. There are tiered guidelines in which the higher the rating, the higher the standards. The two outstanding rated homes have more guidelines that restrict their changes. So for example, the contributing house could change their original windows as long as they are the same size. They could take old windows and put new vinyl windows in. However, the outstanding houses would be first asked to repair the windows and explore those avenues before changing them. On October 2nd, 2022, the Historic Preservation Commission recommended to approve the Cedar Street multi-site district. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Hill? Thank you for the information. In particular, thank you for what was provided in terms of historical information. I found that to be as interesting as anything that I've read in a while. So I
Correct.
appreciate
And
all that.
we kind of paired up a commissioner with a homeowner so that they were able to get that information from them.
It was a
and
wonderful
help.
touch. Thank you for doing that.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If so, please come forward.
Mr. President, Council, my name is Mike Portalees, 434 Calhoun in Mishawaka, and I'm very honored to have my childhood home considered for this historic district. My parents bought the house in '64 and still own it. Well, my mother does. My dad passed, as you mostly know, 9 years ago. And I'm sure that the former neighbors, Margaret Skank, who lived at 321 Cedar, as a teacher, would be very honored for this, and the Fee family that lived at 403 when I was a child would be very honored. But I just want to thank you for your time and just comment that we're very much happy to be part of this historic district.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Portalees? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
My name is Mary Watt, living on Prospect Drive and a member of the HPC committee. And in speaking in favor of making this a historic district, I think with the city's plans to improve the Cedar Street Bridge, which was built in 1904 and helped to create this neighborhood that we're now speaking to make a historic district, and also the extension of the Riverwalk, which is also in progress. This will tie in so nicely with the other preservation efforts that are being taken place on Lincoln Way, and just will add a lot of ambiance to that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Luann Welsh, and I live at 1202 East Mishawaka Avenue, and I am a member of the Mishawaka Historic Preservation Commission. I would like to speak in favor of the Cedar Street Historic District. As these and other homes in Mishawaka near their century mark, it's very important to preserve the architecture and the outstanding craftsmanship of these older homes. Recognizing these homes as a historic district helps protect the integrity of their original features, as well as encourage pride of the homeowners and encourages them to take great pride and love their community even more. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? I will only add thanks to our friend and colleague Kate Volker, who was unable to be here tonight due to a scheduling conflict, but Kate sits on the Historic Preservation Commission, and it was, I'm sure, played a vital role in this as well, so we appreciate her work, along with all the other members of the HPC in bringing this to us. And with that, if there are no other questions or comments, I will call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonbaum?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 8-0. Proposed ordinance number 2022-26, an ordinance amending Chapter 10 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the Amusements and Entertainments Ordinance of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Public Health and Safety, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2022-26, report that they have examined said matter, and at their opinion, it should be presented to the council as a whole. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll now open second reading of public hearing on proposed ordinance 2022-26. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Witkowski, Mishawaka Police Department, currently residing at 200 North Church Street, soon to be different. I am here to speak in favor of Public Ordinance 2022-26. This is something we started months ago. It pretty much stemmed from the Heavenly Goat incident up north a few years back. We as a police department thought we needed something to help us out in that arena when these parties pop up, because we had nothing on the books that would control it or address it. So that was our target to do. We did not create the wheel on this. We as in, now I'm speaking for city attorney, but he went to several different sites and investigated what other communities are doing to stop these type of incidents, these parties, and come up with what we felt was a good solution. I have seen some recent comments, pushback on things that are listed in there. I'd just like to say up front, I'd be more than willing to look at those concerns and work through those. I thought we addressed most of them, but maybe we did not. There are things that are listed in there. One thing I noticed today when I was rereading it, it was about the going to your neighbors and trying to get permission before you have an event. That was meant to be an outdoor event only, not indoors. That wasn't targeted to be indoors. That was supposed to be an outdoor thing, which we have done in the past. We currently do that now. People have block parties. We make them go to the neighbors and make sure it's okay and they're good with it for closing the street. So there's no charge for the form. We would like to, we would like to see filled out, but we could work with these clubs on especially annual events that they've had for years. I'd be more than glad to work with them on that and quickly get those vetted. And if we had a list, say at the beginning of the year of, whatever that number might be that they annually have, I mean, we know they haven't had problems with those, so those would be pretty easily to be looked at and checked off the list. But what we're trying to do is stop. We're trying to be proactive, not reactive to events such as Heavenly Goat. I mean, that ended up being a homicide. That was an awful situation, 70, 80 shots fired. People, the apartments across the street, across there by Bar Louie were hit. So we're lucky we didn't have more damage than we did. So, like I say, I'm here to work with anybody we can to try and make this work, but I have to have something that I can use to stop these events. We've just by smoke and mirrors been able to stop several in the last couple of years that came to our attention. There's one recently. Believe it or not, people rent venues out and aren't honest to what they're planning on doing. And then we see it on Facebook, and a lot of times we're chasing the time clock because one recent one with one of our clubs, we found out like on a Thursday, the event was supposed to take off on Friday. It was proposed to be a birthday celebration, and on Facebook, the advertisement was quite contrary to what that was going to be. So we were able to get that stopped. We've had several other examples of that, but it's hard when you find out 2 days before the event to get it to stop. So if we have a permit in place, or they're supposed to have a permit in place, it's easy for myself and along with fire, I mean, just to stop these events before they even happen. So I believe we need something through a city ordinance. This look across the country at things that are happening. So this is no longer 1990 Mishawaka or 1970 Mishawaka. I mean, things are happening, and we're foolish to think they won't happen here. Prime example, it already did 2 years ago. So we just need something to help strengthen us so we can better do our job.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Witkowski? Chief, thank you for the work that you and Mr. Hinkle, the Corporation Counsel, have done to put this together and bring it to us, and then listening to some of the suggestions and the concerns that we as a council have had throughout this. It comes through loud and clear that you believe that this would be a measure that would enhance public safety in Mishawaka. And as you referenced, the unfortunate tragic loss of life at Heavenly Goat was the inception for at least this version of the discussion. But as we've worked through this process, I've started to think of this also in terms of events that don't result in that tragic outcome, but still pose a problem to public safety in Mishawaka. Events where multiple squad cars have to be called off a beat where they're servicing other issues in the community and respond to a call. So can you touch on that? Am I wrong to think that the intent here would also to be try to get at those events that pose a risk short of resulting in a homicide?
Oh, exactly that. I mean, that just totally takes everyone we have working to go to such a magnitude event of that nature, to police it, to call in overtime. I mean, that was tens of thousands of dollars, the one up north there that, we had to respond to. But then in the meantime, the city is stripped because we got so much going on up there. It's just, it's crazy. So we have to have something in place to address that proactively before it starts, because once it goes, and then if it goes wrong, we can't control it. I don't have the manpower to work it. I mean, when you call in overtime, you know, you're talking 30 minutes, 40 minutes before you can get people in to help? That's too late at that point.
My friend and colleague, Mr. Compton, and I, in the last couple of days, have spoken on several occasions about this, and even this evening, I made reference to this as being, tonight's proceeding being another step in the conversation and the process to try to arrive at an outcome that would address the concerns that you've expressed and balance the need of business owners and others. Would you agree with that? From your comments earlier, I would take it as your willingness to listen to concerns that we've received some already via email and some other communications, but it sounds like you're also willing to work with us, and let's volunteer the corporation counsel, since he's not up at the podium,
Exactly.
to
I mean,
be
so
part of
we're
it
not-
as well.
We're not trying to take money out of anyone's pockets. We're not trying to rain on their parade. I know some events have gone on for years. We're not trying to stop any of that. It's these new things that we're looking at. You know, we scour social media all the time for look events like that, so we're not surprised.
So would it be a fair summary from your perspective? You're not saying that it has to be exactly this ordinance as it is currently drafted, but you believe that we need to do something in order to address the underlying concern. Would that be accurate?
Very accurate, exactly. I'm willing to work with anyone. I understand the smaller clubs have been in business for years, and it's a change. But, you know, we're just asking them to fill out a form. But even the 30-day clause in there, there's a workaround on that already in the ordinance on number 2, page 2, number 2, that if it's already previously okayed through the board, then that 30-day thing goes away. So we've already thought of that, and not going to mandate them to everything has to be 30 days.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your assistance this evening, and again, with the work that you've done to get us to this point, so thank you. Any additional questions for Chief Witkowski? Thank you. I guess that was just a bunch of noise. Nobody really has any questions for you. but- Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If you would, please come forward.
Janet Whitfield Heidick, 622 West 8th Street, Mishawaka. I am here tonight as a council member for the DeMickey Club. First off, I just want to say to the chief, we really value our safety, public safety, being good neighbors in our community, and overall understand the need for this ordinance. What I and my colleagues, the board members, I believe, would like to see is maybe meeting to just kind of discuss a few of the things that we still have questions on how it's going to affect the club. And some of it may be semantics and easy things just to fix. When we look at the section 4 with C, we understand that, you know, funeral dinners, weddings, wedding receptions, those would be exempt from that 30-day. But we also have graduation parties that can be more than 50. I mean, it's kind of like, I look at it and say, if this is a list, is it a comprehensive list, or will there be, you know, the ability to kind of broaden it in scope? We have, surprisingly, sometimes people have baby and bridal showers that are more than 50 people, which is crazy, but it happens. You know, those kind of events. And I guess the other thing, one of the questions that we thought was, throughout the year, and I don't know if this affects us or not, throughout the year, we have the Small Business Michiana. They host something in the upstairs hall, a vendor's market. So on any given day, they might have maybe 15 vendors. Maybe they'll get 20 people there that Sunday. Maybe they'll get 60. It's kind of hard to know. So how does that impact those kind of hall rentals when it's not the club actually sponsoring it, it's an outside vendor coming in, who is a very good, I mean, very, very wonderful to work with. So I guess some of it is the onus of how does that fit into what we do to allow her to be able to rent the club hall to do what she does. So, and I know she goes around to other various venues throughout every month. I mean, so we're just like maybe once a quarter. So those are just some of the small things. I think maybe it's just working through some of the questions maybe the clubs have. And maybe there's an opportunity to meet with the clubs together. We're working on a Columbus Day event, so we all get together on a regular basis for this. But, you know, so maybe it's something where we just have the opportunity to go through this a little more and ease our fears or our concerns on how it impacts the club. Because, like I said, we do want public safety. We want our patrons to be safe at our club, and we don't want issues at our club either, even for rentals. So I just want to share with that, and so maybe we can talk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions
Thanks.
for Janet? So Janet, would it be fair to say that if there was an opportunity for not just representatives of the D. Minkies, but representatives of our friends in the for-profit market to participate as well?
Absolutely. I think you need, and I know we have clubs that will allow you to come and have a meeting.
Will you commit that John Livers won't be your representative to this so that we don't have to deal with that issue? Nah, it's just me being, sorry. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, council members, Dave Wood, Mayor, here to speak in support of this effort, which originated, as Chief said, out of the Heavenly Goat situation that happened, as well as some others that we've learned about over time. But by the good work of the Mishawaka Police Department, working with some outside agencies, might have turned into very bad situations. But we recognize that, you know, we were lucky maybe a couple of times, and we may not be lucky all the time. We live in a different world. We see deception out there when it comes to renting some of these places. We're looking to protect business owners, and we're looking to protect service clubs, of which I'm a member and a good customer of most of them here in Mishawaka, including tonight. But when Heavenly Goat happened and a couple of other issues happened, we decided to take a comprehensive look all around at how we, you know, what could we do differently? How can we respond better? One of the things that we promised was not only to look at operations within the police department, but also at our ordinance structure. We saw a glaring hole in our ordinance structure for something that gave us a tool that, when it comes to some of these big events that we may not know about, at least give us notice so that we can be on alert for it. So that's this here. But we have also made some changes at the police department. We now have a rapid response unit that we're training up and getting prepared with new equipment to respond. You know, we are always looking to be proactive, and this is an effort to be proactive at the Mishawaka Police Department. And our job, number one, is public safety. It's our top priority, and so we believe that this is needed. This type of tool is needed, but we hear loud and clear. This was always meant to be a conversation starter. We're not here to dictate. Trust us, this is more work for us, and we're not interested in charging and being bad for business, but we need to know about some of these things and help and protect to the extent that we can. But we also, it was meant to be a conversation starter. We're not trying to, you know, police every single funeral dinner at the BK. It's not what we want to do here. We want to work with the BK and come up with something that protects them, works for them, also allows us to you know, to provide public safety to the best extent that we can. So whether it's a business, whether it's a club, we would love to have the conversation and make some tweaks and tunes just to get this as right as we possibly can. Maybe it goes nowhere. That is, you know, that's a possibility. But we think that there is a need for a tool of this nature. Could be something different, but we see this as a need for the city of Mishawaka.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Wood? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Please come forward.
Good
Good evening. My name's Pat Perry, representing the Dealer Auto Club, 914 Division Street in Mishawaka. Look, I'm not, Mr. President, members of the council. I get it. I get why you have to do this, and, you know, I get why this is being looked at. I mean, like Chief Witkowski said, it's a different era. I get it. Some of the proposals I don't understand. I think the last hearing we had, it was at 100 people per event. I noticed it dropped down to 50. I just had some bullet points to make, maybe 3 or 4. I don't know, it could go on more, but I don't know if they have an answer, but I don't quite get the clarification for nonprofits. Like Janet said, I think some of that needs cleaned up because it's not quite clear in the ordinance that I read. And how are you going to enforce an ordinance? So this is just throwing this out. If the consequence for having the ordinance and getting a permit before you have a party, the only consequence is after something bad happens at the party. You got the permit, guns go off, people get killed, police get called. The only consequence is that you get fined either $2,500 or $7,500. Is it really the intent to protect our business or to protect the image of the city? Now, Mr. Witkowski presented an example that happened at my club. I believe the South Bend Police Department alerted his department about a questionable event. Okay, I got word of it. I shut it down. We had an off-duty Mishawaka police officer scheduled to secure the event. We have to provide security for an event that was planned, and we had that. When the Mishawaka Police Department found the Facebook page, they thought it was a questionable organization or people, and they wouldn't allow that officer to secure the event. I couldn't secure another event, another officer, or another personnel in one day, or it's actually less than 24 hours. So I shut it down. My question is, if the city doesn't want to enforce what they're trying to enforce, and I'm stuck to going to Uncle Frank's security department, I don't quite see that the city is really concerned for my business. So those are some bullet points that I think still need to be talked about, because I don't quite get the whole intent of the proposal. And, you know, I don't know if y'all have answers for that, if you have any questions for me. But I think it needs to be still discussed, and I think it could be worked out. And I get it. I think it's a good thing, but I think it also needs to be worked out where it's more proactive than reactive.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Perry? Pat, if you have your comments reduced to a list, if they're in a format that we can actually read them, you know, if you want to leave them with Debbie, then that would be something that we could share with all of us, that we can integrate that into the process here. I will tell you that, and your questions are logical, so I'm not trying to indicate otherwise. I think this process is going to be more beneficial for all of us if, rather than trying to answer these things on a fly, what was suggested earlier, which is coming up with a different format where we can work through this in more of a measured fashion, I think we would be doing ourselves a collective disservice if we tried to write this in real time tonight on the floor of the chambers. My personal opinion is that we're better off trying to look at another process where you, the clubs, the for-profit, corporate citizens have an opportunity to be part of the process, as long as everybody goes into it with the anticipation that no one will get everything that they want when you bring so many people together and try to come up with a piece of legislation by committee. There are going to have to be some compromises that we strike, but that's not me saying that I think right now we've struck the perfect balance with where we're at. So I appreciate your concerns, but that would be my preference in how we'd move forward. Let's look at a process where you can work through this in a little bit different fashion and take into consideration all those good points that you're raising.
I understand. You know, it seems like some of the businesses that should be represented here are not here.
Well, I'll tell you, my friend and colleague, Mr. Compton, went over and above what I even would have expected that he would do by making some phone calls throughout the community. The problem is, anytime that you try to do that, there's always somebody who feels like they should have been on the list to call, and there isn't any ready